Hey guys, welcome back. I know I've fallen a little bit behind, which is why I'm going to come back with a very hard, very real topic, because that's what we do here, that in some ways is very black and white and in other ways requires a little bit more discernment. Today, we're talking about pedophiles and neonazis. Sorry about that. The effects are not for humor. They're just because YouTube is finicky with certain words and I don't want this to get taken down. This is a topic that I'm very passionate about, but in this video, you're going to see me dial that back a little bit to discuss some of the things I think are important talking points to those of us reacting to the outings of these people and the metaphorical trash being taken out. This one will make you think, and you may disagree with some of my points, but feel free to discuss that down below. Also, be warned, I won't be deleting comments. I never delete comments, but YouTube loves to. It seems like, especially on this channel. So be careful what you say if you want it to stay up. And if you have anything you're unsure of, just copy the comment, send it. If it gets deleted, edit that part and retry it. Sometimes that works. I'm John. This is Zuko, and you're watching the Scaly Scoop here on Tipping Scales.
Okay, it's an isolated incident.
You get to determine what is our pet.
Have a seat over in that chair, please.
A lizard and a crocodile were removed from a home in Beaver County, Pennsylvania.
My Lord, a snapping turtle. Wow.
Because this video is about bigots and abusers, I need to offer a trigger warning before we get started. Some of the things I'm going to be talking about could be very hard to hear for some people. This is a very emotionally charged subject. And I also want to be very clear, I have to be careful with what I say about how I feel too. None of the information contained in this video is meant with the intent to harm or cause others to wish to cause harm. This is purely for informational and educational purposes only, and so I will do my best to reflect that going forward. All of the discussion contained within this video has been made public by the states that these crimes were committed in or was shared in a public forum, so I won't be censoring names. Let's start with everyone's favorite neo-Nazi, Timothy Gould. A little backstory on Tim. In 2023, Timothy James Gould was arrested and charged with 4 felonies and 18 misdemeanors in connection with Operation Viper for the illegal sale, possession, and transport of venomous snakes, both across state lines and into the hands of unlicensed keepers, according to a statement made by DNR investigator Brian Adams. According to MyMCR, Tim slept in his smelly car with more than 20 venomous snakes on long drives from Pennsylvania. The car reeked, Adams told the MCR reporter. I'm not sure if the smell was from 20 snakes in a tight space or if it was from
Nazis. I hate these guys.
If anyone is unfamiliar with what Operation Viper is, it was an undercover sting operation that began in 2020 and was run by FWC investigators in Florida. Over the course of 3 years, they were able to buy and sell nearly 200 illegal snakes while working undercover to build a criminal case. They made 8 arrests, one of which was Gould. I am personally not aware of what became of the charges. That's all the information I have on that, but that isn't our main talking point for today. Today, we're here to talk in part about Tim's other mission, and this is going to have to be heavily edited to stay on YouTube. So do your best to fill in the blanks as I read some of his manifestos that he shared publicly on his Facebook account. Wake the fuck. I can't read this stuff. There's no way, like, I don't want it to come out of my mouth. I can't read it out loud. It's absolutely disgusting. And also, it doesn't matter how heavily edited this is. There's no way YouTube will allow it. So if you want to see what was said, and I warn you, it is the most anti-Semitic and graphic thing, and also essay trigger warning in there too. But if you want to see it, the very first link in the description will be to my Facebook post, and there you'll have all the screenshots. So if you want to see it, pause the video here and come back to it. If you don't, we'll move on. Just know it was some really disgusting stuff, and everything included, that he did not hold back anything. So after all the blowback, Tim posted an apology, which mostly consisted of justifying his viewpoints, condemning and mocking the people calling him out, and saying he's not actually anti-Semitic because he would allow a Jewish woman the pleasure of sleeping with him. And also crying about how if his business fails because of his own actions, it will affect his daughter. I guess the Third Reich is not paying so well these days. Before we get into the important part of this video, let's talk about the rest of the garbage that's being pulled from the shadows and into the sunlight lately. the predators of the reptile world. No, I'm not talking snakes and most lizards. I'm talking the ones on the National Sex Offender Registry. I'm not here for a lawsuit, so I will reiterate that none of the information that I am sharing that is publicly available is meant in any way to threaten, intimidate, or harass these people, their businesses, or their families. I openly discourage anyone from doing so. Anyone who does is misusing that information that is publicly available, and this video is not to that end. That information is for safety purposes only. I really considered going over the names of each of these individuals and their crimes, but because this video is less about the exposure in the end and more about what to do with this information as a community, I'll simply leave a link in the description. It will be the second link to a database compiled by the fine people over at the Scalesafe Blacklist website, whose names I'm also going to omit, because while this is all public information, you can be sued for any reason. So this list below, second link in the description, consists of 40 registrants that operate within the reptile community, along with their registry profiles, what they are convicted of, and some other really heinous details. And again, that list is only for the sake of safety and knowledge, not to harass anybody. Don't go harass anybody. All right, now let's get into the important part of this video, I think. I'm going to pose a handful of questions. I am going to tell you what I think about them, my own opinions, and you are more than welcome to disagree if you're a Nazi. I'm just kidding. You're welcome to disagree, and I am happy to discuss them with you. So let's tackle the first case here, and then we'll combine the two in the second half. There are people saying that Tim is entitled to his personal opinion and who are defending his rhetoric as freedom of speech. Now, if you went and read what he wrote, I think you know what I'm going to say here next. Freedom of speech does not cover hate speech, and it most certainly doesn't cover written, detailed threats of violence. Both of these things can carry criminal charges with them for a reason. Under law, a written threat or even a vocalized threat can lead you to be charged with assault. This is more true in writing because it carries a permanence that can intensify a perceived threat. So no, it's not covered under freedom of speech. You can find examples of this in every state's penal code. Secondly, everyone has an opinion. The 40 guys on the registry list have some pretty terrible opinions too. That's not a reason to excuse it or keep silent about it. The next part of this is, to what degree do we push back, and to what degree does exposure get taken before people not associated with the issue get caught in the crossfire? So we're swinging the pendulum back the other way real quick. I've seen a lot of people sharing Facebook friends lists for the people in question and saying, if you're Facebook friends with this person, you must support their ideologies and what they do and who they are. I understand both sides of this, but I think there is, as there are with most things, more nuance to it than that. There are people I've stayed Facebook friends with just to keep an eye on them because I know they've done some pretty terrible things. We aren't actual friends. We are simply on a platform sharing information. There are also people I'm Facebook friends with that I haven't talked to in years. So none of their activity shows up in my feed. I have no idea what's going on because I never interact with them. That's how the algorithm works. So it's completely conceivable that people on the friends lists of some of these guys have no idea what's going on. So I think calling people out simply for being Facebook friends with somebody is kind of ridiculous. You might not agree with that, but that's what I think. However, let's swing the pendulum back the other way. I believe that changes when it's obvious support is being given to that person with full knowledge of their bad behavior. So in that context, what do we view as support? As I said, simply being friends on Facebook, I don't believe counts as support because you can be there for a multitude of reasons, as I mentioned. Support comes in when someone with full knowledge of that behavior continues to offer financial resources, do business with, offer words of praise for, or straight up likes whatever gross, bigoted, otherwise thing is shared as part of that person's identity. Some of you are not going to like this, but if you're shaking hands with a Nazi or a predator with full knowledge of their actions and patting them on the back, I believe your hands are dirty too. Here's one example of the difference between those two situations. On the predator list below, there's a man who runs a certain dart frog business that has great reviews. I'm sure that none of those customers that left those reviews were aware he was convicted of 4 counts of child rape over a decade ago, and that last year he was arrested for the same with his own daughter. But his wife knows and still defends him as a good man. In this case, the customers aren't supporting with full knowledge, but the wife certainly is. So support alone isn't enough to lump someone in with one of these dirtbags. Support with full knowledge, though? I don't know. I kind of think it is. Now, there are also a lot of people who don't like confrontation. They like to give the benefit of the doubt. They like to hope that people can change. They'll see something gross like Tim's post and cringe and think it's terrible and keep scrolling because they just don't want to get into it. In some cases, that's okay. If the blowback is something you can't handle, for example, you also can't fight any battles if you're overextended or don't have the weapons to fight those battles. And that's fine. But for those of us who do, as Edmund Burke said, or as was attributed to Edmund Burke, the only thing necessary for evil to triumph in the world is for good men to do nothing. Now, with all that in mind, swing of the pendulum back. There's a caveat to even that, and we have some excellent examples of that in all of the canceling that I talked about a couple of videos ago. We, as keepers, get very passionate about the well-being of animals. Look at how far the Holy Thursday Massacre thing went, and the Samson Pruitt thing, and anytime there's animal abuse, how we go after these people. Remember how the call to action in those instances was to address the governor, FWC, animal control, etc., rationally and respectfully, and not be a disorganized, passionate mob, even though we so badly wanted to be. The reason for that is because angry, disorganized mob mentality quickly gets discredited and it fades away to nothing. Passion is a great thing, as long as it goes hand in hand with reason and due diligence. How many movements have been started in the last decade that needed to have been, that were well-intentioned and could have done so much more good in the world, that faded away because of a disconnect between passion, due diligence, and self-control? Now, most of you don't know this about me, but several years ago, I helped found and run a nonprofit for survivors of SA and DV. Our focus was getting resources to private colleges and justice for those who had their assaults covered up at those schools. There was a lot of passion in that group, and I loved it, and I loved the people, and I still do. But shortly before I left, one of our members got hit with a defamation suit for essentially paraphrasing something in passion. Early the next year, I saw the group no longer existed. I have other friends who have run similar groups that I spoke to recently who have experienced the same thing. So that is the real message in this. There are some pretty terrible things going on in the world and some pretty terrible people. I think it's important to speak up about it, to shine a spotlight on the things that would be covered up. But I also think it's important to do our due diligence and to not catch bystanders in the crossfire in our own lust for justice either. I think our actions should be to expose the things solely for the protection of another person, not for our egos, not because we need to validate to ourselves that we are good people, or because we're chasing something to fill a void caused by our own trauma, but completely and unequivocally with the focus of the safety of others, past survivors, current victims, potential future ones, and nothing else. Believe me, that is something I'm working very hard on in my own life as well, so I know how hard it is to apply that mentality. But if we go forward with that purpose in mind, I think the rest will naturally fall into place. All right, that's a lot of heavy, a lot of dark, and a lot of me giving opinions that nobody asked for. But hopefully it caused you to think. And if it did, please hit that like. And if you agree or disagree or have other thoughts and insights, please let me know below. Remember to be kind to yourselves and each other. Not nice, kind. There's a difference. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.